What's up, and welcome to episode 167 of Life in Motion. I've got Bailey with me from the Be Well community. Their mission is to enhance the emotional health and well being of our community through special initiatives like the Be Well Bells. I'm also excited to announce that they are September's nonprofit partner, which means 20% of all sales from illumincollect.com this month will be donated to support their mission. I'm excited to learn about their impact and what the community collection means to them. Bailey, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We are so excited to be here and back a part of the Illumine Collect collection for the third year in a row.
Yes, third year and one, two, this the 12 designs
I believe
after
so,
this
yeah.
year. Yeah, so it's been an awesome partnership since I came in contact. I met Shelly first and kind of met everybody else outside of that. But I'm super excited for continue this on again for a third year, but also what you all have done and kind of grown within the community. But before we kind of talk about those specific things that you do within our community, let's talk a little bit about you, kind of your background story, where you're from, kind of what got you into this kind of space in the first place.
Yeah, so I'm actually originally from Southwest Missouri, was born and raised, grew up here. And then our lives as adults kind of took us all over the place. We lived in St. Louis for a while, Kansas City, lived in Nashville for a couple years. And when we had our second little, we moved back to this area because it's where all of our family is. And having a family without your support and your connection and your community is pretty hard. So we came back here. I started at Burl as an outpatient child and adolescent therapist and did that for almost 4 years. And then this wild thing called COVID-19 happened and kind of flipped everybody's life on its head. And the Be Well initiatives was born within Burl, and I quickly leaned into that resource. I was not a part of the original forming team, but really leaned into that personally as I was navigating being a human in COVID world, as being a provider and a clinician to children, and now this Zoom world where I was trying to do my job. And a lot of it was playing games, and my brain needed those moments of connection with my colleagues, with my fellow Burl coworkers. And so I really utilized that resource and quickly found a benefit for me personally with Be Well. And then luckily, about a year and a half in, there was an opportunity for me to join the Be Well team, and it was a no-brainer for me. It was the opportunity to get to be on more of the prevention side versus the intervention side. How do we get into the community? How do we teach people about their brains so that when crisis occurs, because it's going to happen for all of us, we have the tools to know how to manage that best possible, or lean into the people that can help us through those moments. So it really was a very fortuitous thing, and it all worked out in a way that now I get to be a part of this really incredible movement and team.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and kind of that progression, kind of as you mentioned, through that. So, what was it about kind of that space in the first place that kind of that you wanted to help? I mean, obviously, you're dealing with sensitive cases and stuff, and or still now, but initially, kind of being in that space, like what drove you there? Or I guess that passion, I guess, because I feel like that's a very passionate thing to do. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of I don't know, grit might not be the right word, but there's some tough things I'm sure that go on inside that. So is it just that I guess that caring personality that I would assume that you have because of all that?
Well, and it's so what brought me to therapy in general, again, is that sort of a fortuitous happening. My degree is actually in art therapy counseling. I was totally set on being a graphic designer when I was going into college, mostly because somebody at one point in my life told me I would be good at that. But simultaneously, I loved art. Simultaneously, throughout my childhood, adolescence, I was always the person that people came to when they had stuff going on. And so I was kind of used to being that holding space for people. And then I found art therapy through a really amazing advisor in undergrad. And then that became my path. And then I did that for almost 7 years, where I was caring for kiddos. There's a lot of beautiful things with that. Part of my, I saw kids from 3 all the way up to early 20s. So my days shifted from literally playing on the floor with kids to being more interactive and having more like life transition conversations with young adults, which was amazing. And therapy is always this parallel process of, and really life is like, if you think about it, this going through what you're going through and also being side by side and in it with people and what they're going through. And pandemic world just really made me realize how little we talk about brain health and how we care for our brains. And I saw this beautiful opportunity with Be Well, in being able to get in that space of how do we teach people in a way, obviously not going to keep crisis from happening or keep difficult moments from happening, but how do we teach people what to do in those scenarios, even the very basics of like, who are you going to go to, like when it's my little or my friend or my coworker or me that's in brain health crisis, like where do we go? Who are we going to go to? Who am I going to lean into? And we both know Dr. Shelley Farnan. She's just sort of this electric personality, and has this ability to hold space for people in a way that feels just genuine and comforting and inviting. And she created this space, this digital space where that was happening. Her and this team of amazing psychologists created a space where, although it was digital, it still felt very connected. And it's just hard to not want to be a part of that, to be.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I appreciate that passion initially, and then obviously still continuing with that. So with the Be Well initiatives and everything that you're doing, you kind of mentioned, creating a digital space and all this. I guess, how did you all go about that? And also, I guess, or I guess this kind of goes along with that. I guess therapy and mental health, wellness, and that kind of stuff can sometimes, I don't know if scare people off is the right word to say. But there's some intimidation there, especially if you feel like you're going through something and you're like, well, I don't want to talk to so and so because then they'll think this or that. So how do you make that as smooth of a process to kind of make that impact that you're kind of going for, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. The number one thing we try to do is normalize the human experience, right? Like, what we say a lot of times is we are all just one bit of news, one traffic moment, one child getting sick moment from feeling like we are highly distressed. That is part of the human experience. It's part of the way our brains are built. We talk a lot about, because our brains are built for survival, and thank goodness, because it's helped our species survive for, we've got a pretty good track record, a few thousand years. But because of that, like, we are just one bit of news, information, experience from being in high distress. And for some of us, high distress may look like we have an elevated heart rate and we have trouble thinking clearly or making logical decisions. And for some others of us, that might be a formal mental health diagnosis, but it's part of the human brain. So we try to really give the neuroscience behind why our brains do what they do, and normalize this human experience just as being kind of messy and all over the place for all of us all the time. And that's really, we try to be as relatable, and reduce as much stigma as possible around just how our brains work, because we all deserve to know how they work and what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that makes sense, kind of in a way, kind of taking down sort of that barrier, or almost might not be the right word, but um and trying to make everybody kind of feel comfortable and welcome in that to share, or do whatever is going on. So like, what type of, I guess, we kind of touched on it broadly, but what are some of those different initiatives and stuff that you all do? Because I know, obviously it was primarily digital for a while, and still is, but there's also some other things as it's evolved. Obviously, we've got out of the dark ages a couple years ago with that, so everything opened up. So, what are some of those kind of specific things that you all do?
Yeah, so we really try to meet people where they are. Because these brains of ours come with us in all the spaces where we exist. We partner with businesses in the community for employee wellness initiatives. We go in to either digitally or in person to different businesses to help employers and care for the brain health of their employees. So we get involved in the community with that, which also connects and ties with those Be Well Bells. We try to get as directly into the community as much as possible. So for example, we'll be at Cider Days in mid September so that we are getting people connected to the care that they deserve in real time out in the spaces where our community resides. The bells do that for us as well. When we can't physically be there, our Be Well bells live in the community in different spaces and have a QR code on the base that then connects them to wellness resources and crisis support right there and then, no matter what time of day it is or where it's located. And then, of course, we still live in this digital space too. We're kind of all over the place. We love Instagram. We've been playing around with that quite a bit more lately. And then we live in these either Zoom experiences, we have free experiences for the community, and then we have Facebook Live experiences. And we're always looking for a good partnership. Any folks in the community that are doing wonderful things, we love collaborations and teaming up with organizations in the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different areas that you can, touch the community, as you mentioned, online, walking down the street, passing a bell, these specific events. What are these I guess what is the overall, I guess, general, like the general feedback or response of people, whether it be in a business setting or an event setting, or maybe maybe you've seen an increase of people using the QR codes just because it's there, and it's making it seem not as daunting to reach out when you need it. Are there any kind of, I guess, specific feedback or things trends that you have seen, I guess, in a positive way kind of since
Yeah.
then?
Absolutely. So because we are clinicians at heart, many of us, we love data.
Yeah.
So we love collecting data. And one of the things we do anytime we do one of our formal Be Well experiences is we do a self-assessment. And over across different populations, across different industries, across different experiences, we average about a almost 40%, about a 38.9% reduction in distress. So from that, we take one at the beginning and we take one at the end, just to say, hey, like 60 minutes or 30 minutes or 20 minutes of intentional time to care for your brain can reduce your distress. Does that mean that you went from feeling highly distressed to zero calm and at peace? Likely not, but maybe it got us to a point where we're able to function a little more clearly, to make better decisions for ourselves, to think about what that next step might be. So that's a piece of data we love leaning into. Um, in general, my personal favorite piece of when we are out in the community, whether it be one of our formal experiences or just getting to be out in the community, are those very human, personal stories. Either saying like, "Hey, I need help, and I'm really struggling to connect or navigate this therapy world and get into services." We get to kind of be that warm handoff and connection. The other, or it's somebody saying like, I know somebody and they don't know where to go, what are the resources out there? So really just we kind of envision ourselves as this warm hug or this warm connection to resources too that people deserve. That's more of a case study, like circumstantial, less hard data, but personally it's those connections that I love the most. Or people coming and saying, thank you for the opportunity to just be vulnerable and open and to talk about this, because I know somebody who died by suicide, or my child is somebody who is navigating a mental health diagnosis. And it just gives them a space to, and hopefully the freedom to feel comfortable enough to talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're sort of breaking down a stigma in that way, and doing it. Um, I don't want to say small ripple effects, but if you're impacting somebody in the corporate section, and you get those results back, or somebody sees you in the community, whether they know somebody or maybe they're going through something themselves, it's kind of, I feel like their inner circle of who that individual is kind of spreading out and making it more comfortable for, or they might hear a friend say something like, hey, maybe I should talk to him about this or them about that or whatnot. So I feel like the things that you all do specifically within the community are end up being much larger just because of that, and that people getting comfortable, I guess, to be vulnerable as well themselves to do that.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes by Glennon Doyle is, there is no such thing as one way liberation. And so, like, when we feel comfortable to either talk about the mental health stigma around what we're going through, or even just talk about feelings, I think sometimes is viewed in a certain way, particularly in the workspaces. It gives that permission for others to do the same, to say, like, when somebody asks you, how are you doing, to genuinely respond, like, it was a rough morning. Like, I'm here and I'm surviving, but you know what? This morning kind of sucked, and I'm kind of still living in that space. I need a moment to reorient, and just be human, just be whole humans, and human beings instead of human doings, and just allowing ourselves to be our full selves in different spaces.
Yeah, I love that, and I love human being instead of human doing. I haven't heard that one before. I like
That one's
that.
an on-site workshops. That's one of their lean intos. They say that a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so I also want to mention, so I know the answer to this because I've talked to Shelly, and that's how I first learned. But what is the significance of the bell itself? Like, obviously there's the art and everything, and I guess you speak on the art as well, but just the significance of using a bell versus a heart or a smiley face or whatever. What is that significance?
Well, nothing we do is without, like, full, thorough vetting and intentionality. We really try to put heart and love and thought into everything we do. And actually, the symbolism of the bell comes from the situation in the 60s, where the asylums and institutions where we used to treat mental health illness were closed. At that time, things like chains and shackles were being utilized in those facilities to help treat folks diagnosed with mental health illness. And Mental Health America said, when all of those asylums and institutions were closed, Mental Health America, which is one of the leading organizations for mental health in the US, said, send us the shackles and the chains. They melted it down and created the first bell, mental health bell, as a symbolism of hope and change, and ending the stigma and the way we treat folks with mental health, diagnosed mental health illness. So when we really wanted a symbol to represent reducing stigma and engaging and igniting hope in our communities, the bell felt like a natural bridge for that. So we reached out to Mental Health America, said, hey, this is our idea. Do we have your permission to use this symbol? And they said, absolutely, just keep us notified. Like, let us know where it goes and what happens with it. So for 2 years now, we've been using that symbol of the bell as a way to ring in a new narrative around mental health, around to hopefully ring in hope for those of us who are in mental health crisis or brain health crisis and are deserving of that support. So the bell itself is a pretty significant symbol. It's one that gives me chills almost every time I talk about it. But it truly is just a cool meaning.
Yeah, and like you said, very, very meaningful. Because when Shelly first told that to me, I was like, oh, that, like, it just feels very powerful. I guess it's obviously a serious thing, but you're bringing that to shed light in a positive way. So it's really awesome. And now there's, like I said, we've done 12 of the bells, but there's like double that. How many bells are there around the not only the Springfield community, but in other areas as well?
Yeah, so we have 14 total now. Several in Southwest Missouri. We have one in Perryville, Missouri. We have a couple to be coming soon in other areas of Missouri. We have a Central Region Bell. So 14 in place, and at least three more in the works. which is just kind of amazing. And a lot of times organizations or nonprofits will come to us and and ask, like, how do we get a bell? Or communities at large are like, we want a bell for our community so folks can have this access to care, and start talking about mental health and brain health in just different ways, which is really powerful. And then what we do is, again, like, we don't do anything haphazardly. We engage and ask artists in the community to design and decorate the bells for the most part. We have a couple exceptions. But what we ask for artists to submit applications of why brain health and mental health is important to them or significant in their human experience, and folks who are invested in reducing mental health stigma. And then they get to design. That's really the only outline that we give them. And it's just amazing to watch how each artist individually interprets that in their own way and their own message through color and design. And we team up with local artists in whatever community that these bells are going into, so that it's somebody who is connected to the community and what brain health means for the community at large too. So that's always a fun experience. My art therapy heart gets a little excited about all of that. Just the beauty of creativity and how we can give this open directive, and it will never be the same to anybody, and each artist will interpret that in a beautiful and different way. So that's also really exciting.
Yeah, and I think that that's really cool. Like, not only obviously working with local artists and stuff like that, but to your point, you have the kind of the staple, which is the bell, but then they're doing their own kind of perspective of whatever that messaging is for them, which is how we all, you could see something different than I see something. And that's the same way, maybe, however many bells are around in Springfield. I know there were some in Banks, there's music therapy, the Ozarks, or outside different places, but I might look at one bell and it doesn't really resonate with me. But then I walk down a block down or whatever, and I see another bell and it does resonate with me. So I think that uniqueness of each of those, obviously plays into how we all are unique, but also can connect with the right people at the right time, depending on kind of how they view that bell. So I think that part is really awesome.
Yeah, and the really cool thing about any art, whether it be visual expression or music or movement, is that it is up for interpretation. That even if what the artist is intending, because and we do artist statements and whatnot, but if I just happen a piece of art in the community, I may resonate in that in a way that is personal for me that the artist never really intended. And so I think it's also beautiful that it's just kind of open, like you said, open for interpretation. And like, we think about these things, like I think about music personally as something, oftentimes I can find a song that feels very validating for my emotional state or my stage of life or whatever is happening for me. And we can really lean into creative arts for that sense of connection that would maybe open us up for a conversation that we weren't ready for before, or a connection point, or the ability to scan that QR code in a way that maybe if we were just open, that dialogue were opened with just verbally, we may not be open for.
Absolutely, absolutely. That makes sense. Kind of all the different layers, I guess, of how we process and relate and connect and all that. And so we talked a lot about, obviously you all kind of being all over the place in different areas within the community, whether that be events, your own events at businesses, doing that, obviously working with local artists, the bells being everywhere. So obviously, the community aspect is, drives this whole thing. Is obviously the whole reason behind it. So what has something like the community collection, since it's like the third year and whatnot, what do these kind of collaborations and relationships kind of mean to help kind of further your mission and the impact that you're trying to achieve?
Well, first of all, like I was saying before, collaboration is just sort of in the nature of what we do, because we only are one perspective. And when we collaborate with other communities, we get other people who are embedded, or other organizations, we get other people who are embedded in the community in new and different ways. The more perspectives, the better. We're not going to be able to see every angle for everything. So there's just this organic thing that happens when we collaborate with folks who are embedded in the community in different ways that help us best meet the community meaningfully. So that piece is always helpful. Specifically, like with this bell collection, so we know that the bells are all over in the community. However, access to them can sometimes be limited based on transportation. And this is sort of that walking ability to have to get access or to see and witness the bells in a different way, and hopefully open up conversations. I can't remember. I've had numerous times in my life where I've been wearing some kind of T-shirt, whether it be a bell shirt or some other kind of T-shirt, where somebody's asked me about it or asked a question, and it just opens up a dialogue and a space for connection, which is really what we are about. And getting that out into the community in new and different ways, and frankly a lot of different ways, so that it reaches someone somewhere, whether it be through a bell, it be because we are showed up for your work or organization, or you see somebody at cider days wearing a bell t-shirt. It's just trying to get out there in as many ways as possible so that we can really reduce that stigma and get people talking and connecting meaningfully over these things. And Illumine Collect has really helped create and bring the bells to life in a way that honestly we did not even think possible, because you take this three-dimensional incredible piece that artists have created, and you all have done just a beautiful job of bringing them to life in t-shirt form to hopefully give a similar experience and engage people in that conversation too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been, loved working with you all the past 3 years, or this will now be the third year. But like you said, kind of to um, carry not carry on but carry on that message outside of just the physical bell, and like you said, help spark conversations, and that openness. So I'm excited to do that again this year. And of course, you can visit illumincollect.com to grab your bell. It's kind of like we I think last year this time, Lexi and I kind of joked that it's sort of like Pokemon at this point. You got to collect them all. So and there's more down the work. So hope to continue that relationship. But I'm super excited for that. But so where to that point, where can people find you online? To figure out how to get involved, to reach out, find resources, and kind of all the other things that you all offer.
Yeah, so the best landing page for us to get access to all the other things is our website, and that is bewellcommunity.org. You can get linked up to all the events that we are either putting on or attending for the month. You can get linked to our Instagram page, through at Burrell Be Well. There we have a Spotify playlist, Be Well Burrell Community Spotify playlist that has over 21 hours of hope-filled music. That's another thing that we really lean into. And so that landing page is really the best spot to find to get connected to all those other resources. And beyond that, then we connect folks to the leading resources in the mental health industry, whether that be for suicide loss and prevention, or if that's grief, or if you're looking for just a breadth of different services, that's all on our webpage too. So we know that we are not the only expert in this field, and we want to get folks connected with the right experts that are right for them.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, definitely make sure you visit their page, their socials. If you see them out and about in the community, and you're in Springfield, say hello to them. Great people, great mission. But Bailey, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I'm excited for this upcoming collection, and I wish you all the best of luck for this year.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, and thank you for all your continued collaboration with these amazing bells.